Hello, I'm Philip Mugglestone, and in this series of videos we're covering the R integration for SAP HANA. In this video we're going to extend what we saw in the previous key concepts video and talk a little bit more about how you may want to pass parameters between HANA and R. So here we are back in HANA Studio. This is the example from the key concept video that I hope you've already seen. If not, I do recommend you go back and review it before seeing this video. We can see that we created a view, we created a results table, we set up our procedure, and then we called our procedure. Now, of course, we can call that procedure any number of times we want. In fact, let's maybe empty out the results table, call the procedure again. Let's run that. Okay, the procedure's run, and we can review our new set of results. Like that, we can see we've got a table with the ID and cluster number value from 1 to 3. Now, we can run that as many times as we like, but unless the actual input data changes, it's going to be the same each time we run it. However, we specified in our procedure that we wanted to have 3 clusters, a value of k, or centers in our terms, of 3. But what about if we wanted to maybe play around with that, simulate, maybe go try values from 2 to 10, or just put in different values as we prototype or we work inside an application where we want some flexibility. Now, the way it's been written, if you wanted to maybe change this value to 5, you would need to recreate the procedure so that you could then call it. However, that's a little bit heavy and not necessarily needed. So what we'll see in this video is how you can avoid that and simply find a neat way that you can pass parameters between your application on the HANA side and the coding and the programming that you want to be doing, the scripting on the R side. So let's go to this example here. It's the same example we've already seen. The only difference is that we've added one new concept of parameters. So you can see here, instead of specifying 3 as a hard-coded value, we've actually got some code that picks up what we can call a parameter. So what is the parameter? Well, it's simple. All it is an additional input table that we choose to pass between HANA and R. I chose to call it params, or the actual table name is r_km_params. You could call it anything you want. You can have any number of input and output tables when you're calling R, so it's quite flexible. But instead of having general data that we'll process in it, in the table I've created, in fact, a table with 2 columns, P for parameter name as character, and then p-value as integer for the value of the parameter. So it's name-value pairs effectively. So a simple example. And I've added into that table a row where we can see I've created a parameter name of centers and I gave it a value of 3. And then what we've done in the code here, instead of just hard coding 3, we've accessed this table which becomes a data frame inside of R. So we access the params data frame. We look at the p-name column in that data frame, and when the value is equal to centers, effectively it's an R equivalent of doing a select value where p-name equals centers, and then for that one where p-name is centers, we're going to take the p-value, and that is what we will then send over to the k-means function within R. So we just find a way to actually pass that value of 3 from a table into the R script. So that means you've got ultimate flexibility, because when you actually run the code, you can simply update your parameter table, and then you won't need to go and recreate your R procedure each time. Obviously, recreating the procedure is much more intensive than simply calling the procedure. So something else you may notice in this example, because we already created a view, we created a results table, we created the procedure, what I've also added are just some drop statements, and it's typical that you might want to do this, just so that when you rerun this code or you run it, if the views already exist, then, or the tables already exist, or the procedure exists, it will just remove that before you recreate it. So that's on my setup side, maybe just to smooth things a little bit. So we can take this code and we can run it to now recreate the information we need to have recreated. So let's run that. It gives a little drop table error here because we hadn't actually had the parameter table already, but in the next time we run it, then that wouldn't exist. It would have existed, so we would need to drop it. So we've created our parameter table, and we can see we've got values in it. Let's just refresh our list of tables. We can see now we've got a parameter table, and if we preview that, we have a row with a value of pname centers, value of 3, and when we actually call the procedure, we've added in that table name, the parameter table, as the second parameter into the call procedure. So if we to now run this, we clear out the results table in case it already had rows in it. The first time that wouldn't be needed. We can run the procedure and it runs, just pretty quick to run, and we can look at our results table. So now we see got cluster values between 1 and 3. However, if we maybe wanted to set the clusters to 5, we could simply, instead of recreating the whole procedure, we can simply update our parameter table, maybe set the value to 5, where this is centers. Pname is of centers, and that was our choice, that name. And then we simply update that row, clear out what's in the results table, call the procedure again, and it runs. And this time, when we look at our results, we will see that we actually have cluster number going between 1 and 5. So we've basically been able to pass a parameter that allows us to control the processing that we want to be performed within our R script, and do that, drive that parameter value from our application, which is on the HANA side. So that's parameter passing.